Okay, it's 6:30. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jay Newland with Plainfield Friends, and welcome to the third edition of the Plainfield Community Forum. Tonight we have Brad Du Bois from the Chamber of Commerce who will be speaking to us, and then afterwards we can have questions or comments. I'll come around. Just hold your hand up and I'll come out and let you speak, okay? So here we go. Brad, here.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. Nobody has tomatoes with them, right? Somebody's going to throw any tomatoes at me. There's no shepherd's hooks. You're not going to pull me off stage or anything? Okay. Yeah, there you go. Well, it's Tuesday. It's not Wednesday yet, right, for the farmers market? Yeah. So, like Jay said, my name's Brad Du Bois. I'm the president and CEO of the Plainfield Chamber of Commerce. Kind of let you know a little bit about what the organization does and what we do. First and foremost, chambers are advocates for business. So whether it's my members or whether it's just a business that's not a member, we still advocate for everyone. Of course, my members I'm going to work a little bit harder for, but we're trying to help everybody become a successful business person in Plainfield and in the community. So let's get started here. I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully this thing works. Did it turn off? Nope. Would you be so kind, sir? Yeah, just push the space bar. That should get us there. So we were established in 1968, August 23rd, 1968. There were some business owners in town that decided that we needed an organization. We needed a chamber of commerce. Actually, that's not necessarily true. How many people know Rianne Poirier from the library? She sent me an article a couple months ago that there was actually trying to start one back in the early 1910s. But we couldn't find anything else on it, and it really wasn't called the Chamber of Commerce. It was called a business association. So, but this formerly the Plainfield Chamber of Commerce was formed on that date. Spacebar, please. We started out with 25 charter members. The next slide is going to show you some of these members. I'm sure some of you who have lived here all your life. How many people have lived here all their lives? Might recognize some of these names. Might recognize some of these businesses. I know I do. I've lived here since 1990. Mr. Glendenning, would you please? So, yeah, here's the 25. No, actually, let's go back one. You went too far. There we go. So, First Federal Savings and Loan, which I believe was originally, or it was Lincoln Federal Savings and Loan. You got Public Service Indiana, Al Barker, who our athletic fields are named after, he and his wife. Plainfield Messenger, I thought that was kind of an interesting one. I always remembered as the Hendricks County Messenger or the Hendricks County Flyer. Unfortunately, no longer in publication. But they were started here in Plainfield. Hampton Gentry, they're still here in town. Hayes Shoes, I remember when they were still around, I went in there a couple of times and bought some things from them. It wasn't Henry Hayes that was working in there. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but an older gentleman worked in there when I went in a couple different times. Hardin Heating and Cooling, they're still around. Stratford Drugs, that's Gear Up Cyclery now, that same little shop right there. And Bill Stratford actually is a member of the chamber. He's one of our community members. A few others, Plainfield Animal Hospital, Dr. Butler. I met him a couple times when he was still there, and that building, until recently, was still there. So, but yeah, just a few of them, and a lot of them that I'm not aware of, like Cruise Oil or Plainfield Oil, and of course Robert Hall Insurance Agents. When Steve Hall, Robert's son, was the agent, he insured me when I first moved to Plainfield. So, okay, now we can go to the next slide. But those are the original 25. But before the end of the year, they were able to get 10 more members. Now you'll notice some of these members say associate. We have a community membership for the chamber. So it's just people that may not necessarily have a business that they want to promote, but they want to be in tune with the business community in Plainfield. So those people joined as associate members or community members is what I call them. But you can still see, we've got quite a few people that are there, and it's probably some names that you all can recognize. So next slide, please, sir. These are kind of the membership numbers we've had over the years. So in 1968, we finished out the year with 32 members. Then a few years later, 60, 82. Then you see there's a big jump. I didn't have the numbers in between there. That's why they're not up there. But in 93, 206, 220, 310, that's kind of significant because that's when I took over. That's when they hired me. They got crazy and went off the deep end and hired me to do the job. And then we were lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, and now we're at 450. And we've got members everywhere from small businesses that are 1 to 2 man shops all the way up to Eli Lilly, UPS, Siemens, places like that. This thing changed a little bit. Next slide, Mr. Clendane, please. So executive directors, to give you a little bit of a lineage from the executive directors, there's only been 4 of us. Right now, I'm still employed by the chamber, so I'm the longest sitting executive director at this point. But 95 to 99, Tom Theobald, some of you probably remember him. Mike King, he was a teacher here as well, too. He was here for a couple of years. Kent McPhail was there a long time. He was there for 9 years. Kent was actually instrumental in me getting this job because he came to me and said, hey, by the way, my other place of business was closing down. What are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't know. And he says, well, come have lunch with me. And lo and behold, a couple of months later, they hired me. So, and I've been there ever since 2011, the end of 2011. And in 2017, we changed the name from executive director to president and CEO. And that was to kind of go along with industry standards when it comes to chambers. So we're a member of a National Association of Chambers. We're also a member of the state chamber in different associations. And it's just kind of one of those things that they like to see chambers moving away from. Executive directors normally picture nonprofits, traditional nonprofits, charitable organizations, and we're not a charitable organization, but we are here for business. So, okay, next slide, sir. So this is our mission statement. A couple years ago, we went through a strategic planning session, and we changed our mission statement. It was very, very long. It was probably twice as many words as what's up here now. We kind of simplified it a little bit, but it's still pretty encompassing, I feel, from what the chamber does, because we're involved in a lot of things. Even though we're an advocate for business, we also do a lot of community things too, and you're going to see that here in a little bit. But our main goal is to provide those services to the membership to promote business, economic development, and involvement in the Plainfield area. So I kind of thought that was kind of important to have that shown, if you would please. So these are some of the member services that we provide our members. Everything from business directories. If you go online, if anybody needs any business or any kind of work done in their house, or they're looking for an attorney or an insurance agent or whatever, come to my website. It's plainfield-in.com. There's a directory on there. Try to use some of our chamber members if you can. I certainly, and if you don't see anybody on there that for the work that you need done, call our office. I guarantee you we probably know someone that does that kind of work. They may not necessarily be a chamber member. We'll plug you in that way as well. We try to highlight our new members on social media. We do ribbon cuttings and grand openings. If you follow our Facebook page, which is Plainfield Chamber of Commerce, you'll see we do quite a bit of that stuff when new businesses come to town. We have a lot of networking opportunities. We have a monthly meeting. We always meet on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. Anyone is invited. You're more than welcome to come to those meetings. All I ask is that you RSVP and let us know that, because we have lunch, and I need to let the caterer know how much lunch we need to have. So, but anyone's invited to those things. Just let me know, and you can do that on our website or just email me directly. But we have some other opportunities as well. The last Friday of the month, we have the thing called Chamber Cafe. We always meet at the Oasis Diner or Flapjacks. We go back and forth the street each month. This month, I believe we're going to be at the Oasis Diner this Friday at 8 o'clock. I buy the coffee, but everybody else buys their own lunch. We just sit around and chat. It's very casual. We have a small business roundtable. Again, 90% of our membership are small businesses. Members would have less than 10 employees. So we think it's important to get those owners of those businesses, those CEOs, those presidents together to kind of talk about some of the trials and tribulations they may be facing, especially in the past couple of years. I mean, the last 24 months have not been easy for a lot of businesses. So I think it's important to get those folks together and let them kind of maybe share ideas, share different things that they can do with their own business. Even though they may be totally different, they still may have some of the same common goals and some of the same common problems to help them maybe find some solutions to that stuff. And you would be surprised how many people call me for a referral. It's absolutely amazing. I have people call us from out of town and say, hey, my cousin or my aunt or my uncle or my mother or my father needs this or that done. Who do you suggest we call? And so we make those referrals to those folks when they call in. And then I get a lot of referrals. I get a lot of calls that I can't answer questions to too. It's amazing sometimes. We had a lady that used to call us every year. She would need her leaves raked. So we would try to find somebody to rake her leaves in her lawn. She wasn't able to do it. So I haven't heard from her in a couple of years, but yeah, so stuff like that. So one of the things that when I first came to the chamber, health insurance has always been a real sticking point for me. And I've always found it unusual that we couldn't find a solution for small business. And we worked towards this with the other 3 chambers in the county to find a solution for group health insurance. And we are very close to having a very good program for our small businesses. It's along with HRH and United Healthcare. We have a program in place right now, but it's not where it needs to be. It needs to be able to take a little bit smaller group. But we're working very close with that. But we also have, things like workman's comp. There's discounts there for some of our members if they're so inclined to take advantage of it. And most of our agents can write that insurance. Most of our independent agents can write that insurance. So, and then one of the things that I'm really excited about is primary health care clinics. So HRH offers primary care clinics in all 4 major towns in the county. And I know Plainfield, the town of Plainfield, participates in the program. The school system participates in the program. Now they offer it to all my chamber members. So think of it as a gym membership. So for as little as $60, whether you have a pre-existing condition or not, if you're a member of the chamber, you can be included in this primary care clinic. And they have a very big formulary. I take some medication. All my medication's free. It's included in that clinic. So there's a lot of tests that are included. So again, it's another solution for that healthcare, because again, healthcare is a big thing for me. I really feel as though we don't necessarily do that right in this country, and we're trying to work towards something a little bit better. And then, we get calls for access to local leaders, whether they're state, federal, whomever that might be, whether it's council members here in Plainfield or whether it's, our state representatives, Mr. Steerwald or Mr. Benning or Mr. Crane or Mr. Young or any of those guys, or even Mr. Young, who's our state senator. A few years ago, we were lucky enough to have Dan Coates in town, and we facilitated a luncheon with a lot of our members at the Coachman, believe it or not. He just walked in. It was very casual. He just had a conversation with a lot of our members, which I thought was really cool to have him come in and do that. Dan's a very nice guy. Mr. Coates is a very nice guy. Next slide, please, sir. And these are some of the community development things that we do. And people don't necessarily, they think of the town, especially when we talk about Christmas lights. We own them. The chamber owns them, believe me. We paid for every one of them. We put them up and we take them down. I'm here to tell you, if you walk from the police station to Clark's Creek and back, you will have walked 5 miles, because I do it every year. And then we also do the intersections on Quaker Boulevard. So we added those a few years ago. So we've got over 180 lights, I believe. Yeah, and actually my chairman for that committee is sitting right back there in the green shirt. And a few years ago, you might remember, they were a golden glow bulb that we had in there, LED. We changed them all to bright white. That's 14,000 bulbs. It took us 2 years to do that and a lot of volunteers, but we got it done. And there was another group involved in helping us do that as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The farmers market, what a great collaboration that's been with the church here. We really sincerely appreciate that. I think that is a great community development event. It's like a little carnival every year. I don't want to say carnival, but a little festival every week on that lawn. I think the community really enjoys it. If we didn't have it, I think we'd have an uproar in this community. I think there's just so many people, and I've sit out there, well, the last 2 years. I didn't sit out there quite as much the last 10 years, but the last 2 years for sure. And just to see the smiles, the kids, the parents come through and make healthy choices and buy vegetables and buy fruits and things like that. It's a great collaboration. Cannot thank you enough for that. And then the Quaker Day Parade, a couple years ago, well, actually in 2011 when I took this job, people were always talking to me, hey, can we get the parade back on 40? Can we get the parade back on 40? Well, at the time, there were some leaders in town. I'm not going to mention their names, but they were saying you'll never get it done. NDOT will never let you close 40, ever let you do that. So I kind of, took their advice. Okay, it's not going to happen. We'll continue to do it back here in the little neighborhood back here like we used to do. But a couple years ago, in 2018, a couple of my board members said, why don't you just try? I said, sure. So I did. Believe it or not, I applied with NDOT for a permit to close US 40. Now, we had a plan. I had the police involved. They gave me a plan. We had a plan. I had the permit in 3 days. So, and every year since then, all I have to do is send in the same report every year, and they give me that permit very quickly. So we're very fortunate. So in 2019, we were put the parade back on 40, and I don't think we're ever going to look back. If you've ever witnessed that parade and seen that 3,000 to 4,000 people that line US 40 from one end to the other, it's absolutely fantastic. And there's nothing better than riding in that parade and seeing all these people and seeing all those kids. And yeah, last year was a little bit of a challenge because we couldn't throw candy, but I think this year there might be some candy. And then Main Street Plainfield, that was something, a brainchild of, it was just a conversation with myself and the town manager, Andrew Klinger. You know, we have a very historic downtown. You guys know that. You're in downtown. And it's I don't want to say it's been overlooked, but it was never really had a formal organization to help it maybe thrive, especially with some of the redevelopment that's going on around here. So Andrew and I talked about it, and we decided, you know, we need to try to figure out how we can get a Main Street group started in Plainfield. And a Main Street group does a lot of things for a defined area. In this case, from the creek to, I think, Pickett Street, if I'm not mistaken, is the defined area. But everything along there and all the commerce, and then at least a block off, maybe 2 blocks off of US 40. But there are grants that they can apply for and things once they had a designation, which incidentally, they just got that designation about 2 months ago. So, and they're an official 501c3. But at the time, my office manager, and Main Street organizations are, I should mention, are overseen by OCRA, which is the Office of Community and Rural Affairs in Indiana. My office manager, walked in the office one day and I said, hey, we want to start a Main Street group. We do some research on it. Next thing I know, she had a 501(c)(3) status. She had the organization organized, and she had a rudimentary board already put together. And they were off and running, and that was 2 years ago. And now they've got that Main Street designation. They're moving along. They're moving along very, very well. Matter of fact, they had their first open house here just the other night, and they do some things with the Quaker Day Festival. They do some walking tours and things like that. That's somebody you need to have in here. Have Stephanie come in and talk about that. She's the executive director. My only duty is to appoint the executive director. That's after that. I'm not on the board. I don't have anything to do with it. But we run it out of our office. So it's one of the things that we do. And then we partner with a lot of other civic organizations too. We try our very best to make sure that we help the library with what they do, and so on and so forth, things like that. Yeah, go ahead and switch it. Yeah, and these are some of the other partnerships and collaborations. Obviously, the town on community and economic development items, I'm included in all those things when people want to come to town, bring a business to town, whether it's another warehouse or whether maybe it's another retail spot or another restaurant, something like that. Of course, the Farmers Market, Quaker Days, the other 3 chambers in the county, Avon, Brownsburg, and Danville. We're very unusual that our county has 4 chambers, I'll tell you. I sit on the board of the State Association, and there are very few counties that have that many chambers in one county. The nice thing is we do work very well together. We meet at least once a month and chat about things that are going on in different towns. I got to tell you, we nail it though, so Plainfield, be proud of Plainfield. I had to give a little plug, sorry. And then Plainfield Community Schools, we give scholarships to graduating seniors. We try to help the We the People kids. They're the ones who work with the Constitution and work the constitutional law and debate things. We find that's really important to do those things. And then we'll help with the other group too, DECA, which is the business side and the business competitions that they have at the high school level. The Hendricks County Community Foundation, I talked a little bit earlier about lights and 14,000 lights. They actually gave us a grant to help us pay for those lights. And then at the time, it was Mitch Hayes. He actually had a source for those, and he sold them to us at cost. So we really were able to get that taken care of and get those all changed from that darker golden glow to that bright white. In Hendricks County Economic Development Partnership, I sit on their board. So we're very plugged into the economic development that goes on, not only in Plainfield, but the entire county. And the Plainfield Community Development Corporation, that's a recent add to this. I actually sit on the board of that organization too. There's only 3 of us, and we do things at the behest of the town with redevelopment. So you've seen some things happen around that. We've purchased some properties to maybe redevelop. One of the things that most recently is if you go up Vine Street, everybody remembers the old fertilizer plant that's up there. It's starting to get cleaned up. IDEM's come in, they've taken care of a lot of the contaminated soil up there. They hauled away, I cannot remember how many tons of coal that they found underground that they needed to get rid of. And unfortunately, it was coal that we can't sell because it was too soft. I guess, or it wasn't the right type. But trying to do good things there too as well, just to make sure that, this whole redevelopment's a little more thoughtful in the way we do it. And it's a great organization. And then again, some of the state agencies and organizations that we continue to work with too as well. So I think that might be it. Well, that's me. That's my phone number. You can reach me anytime. And that's my email address. And I've actually got some cards out in the car. I don't know why I didn't bring them in. If anybody ever wants to get a hold of me for any reason whatsoever, or just has a question, feel free to call our office. I mean, we've got, I may not know the answer right away, but I guarantee I can probably get to the answer for you. So, any questions? Anybody have any questions about anything?
It's fine. I didn't think this through. Phil, would the other microphone be working on the stage that he could hold? That way we can pass it back and forth. But are there any questions? Yes. Yeah.
What type of volunteers would you need for many of these activities? What kind of volunteers might you be looking for?
It just depends on the activity. Depends on the program that we have.
Can you give me an example?
Say for instance, let's talk about the parade, because that's a big community event. We can always use volunteers to help with staging down there, help checking people in, things like that. Because we use the Duke Energy employee lot, we have to be very careful who we allow in. They have to make sure that they're in the event. It's always a challenge to keep those people out, just want to drop off their kids maybe to walk in the parade. Well, we really can't have any vehicles going back there that aren't part of the parade. So things like that. What was some of the farmers market? We can always use volunteers there too to help maybe answer some questions, sit at the information booth, because we're there every week, and people will come by, and usually they just want a market bag, but occasionally they might have a question about something. So just to be able to do things like that. And even the walking tours, if some of you probably have a wealth of knowledge on the walking tours, I mean, we'd love to sit down and talk and see if maybe there's some way you can help with that as well. So great question. Oh, there's one.
How did the shutdown affect the businesses in Plainfield?
Yeah, good question. Like many, it was really kind of strange. I know from the chamber standpoint, it was difficult because we get together a lot. Not unlike a church. We're very social, right? So it was hard for our organization. We tried very hard to stay in touch with our members. A lot of our members thrived. Their business actually increased. But like many, specifically restaurant, food service, things like that, they suffered quite a bit, and they had a difficult time maneuvering through it. Some did better than others. Some reported better sales and better years than what they had prior. But others, and we did lose some members through that just because of either going out of business or not being able to afford to stay part of the organization for whatever reason, and still may have a little bit of a problem to do that as well. But we gained a few members along that way too. So it was a give and take. But I will say it was probably more of a take than a give. We probably lost more than we gained, for sure.
Really impressed with how businesses found new ways to help their customers to bring more business in.
Yeah, I think a lot of them had to do that. I mean, that's exactly it. You had to shift and adapt. And if you were good at that, then you were, you thrived and you probably made it through. If you weren't so willing to shift and adapt, then maybe you didn't. But I think most businesses in town here did a really good job of trying to maneuver through that minefield of COVID and the whole thing and the shutdown and whether you were essential or you weren't essential. So another great question. But I think we're starting to see hopefully we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. If I can relate this in any way, especially from the chamber standpoint, we have a golf outing every year. And we usually sell our golf outing out, but it's usually days before the golf outing happens. And by that I mean usually the last week we still have a couple spots left. We sold out a month and a half before the golf outing this year, so that just lets me know that there's a lot of people that want to get out and they want to do things, and now they're seeing that they can do that, and they're going to take advantage of it.
Brett, I've got a question, and
Sure.
it may not be totally your area, but I'm just curious, can you tell us anything about what's happening with the Pruitt Theater? Are you involved with that at all, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, just as an informational thing. So Doug Huff, who owns the Oasis Diner, and brought the diner down here, a few years ago when they brought it right down 40. I don't know if anybody watched that or not, but I did. And Patrick Keller, who owns Crest Point Realty right across the street, they got together and they've got a plan. So a little bit of the history of the Pruitt Theater. I mean, I probably can't tell you too much of the history, but the gentleman that owned it prior to the town purchasing it kind of didn't, he was over his head. He couldn't do what needed to be done to bring it back to where it needed to be so it could be a theater again, quite frankly. And the town saw an opportunity that, hey, look, we really need to figure out a way to get this out of his hands, and if not in anybody else's hands, in our hands, so we can control that situation so that building doesn't deteriorate further than what it already has. And I'll tell you, I've been in it, and it wasn't pretty. It had some problems. And I've been to movies there. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have as well. But it was getting pretty bad. I mean, you could stand in there and actually look at the bricks, and there were places you could actually see light through the bricks. So they purchased it from him and cleaned it up the best they could and did some things with it. And Doug and Patrick came to the town and said, hey, look, we've got a plan to do something a little bit different. And they're looking to do some sort of a performance area complemented with a restaurant type situation. So hopefully in about a year and a half, we'll see something down there that we'll all be proud of. Has anyone been to Greencastle and seen the bridges? So it's an older building. It's a artisanal pizza joint, I guess is what you would call it. And it's really cool. They've got an elevator, they've got rooftop seating. You know, they want to do the same kind of thing there. Not exactly like that, but very, very close, very similar to that project. So I'm excited to see it, I will tell you for sure. So, and yeah, if you guys have any questions about buildings or economic development here in the downtown, I can probably answer some of those questions, or I can try. Yes, sir.
You're talking about the fertilizer plant at Vine Street.
Yep.
I've seen it all cleared up. So what's happening? What's going to go in there?
With Vine Street? Okay, what was the first part of the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Well, the old fertilizer plant.
The old fertilizer plant? That's a great question. We actually looked at a couple different companies to do a housing project up there. Some sort of I don't have to necessarily be condos, maybe more like walk-ups type things, like brownstone type thing, because it's right there at that trailhead. So they're really trying to be thoughtful to have the right type of housing in that area. You know, when they built the place across the street, you know, frankly, I was a little skeptical that anybody would want to live there. It took them 4 weeks to sell it out. I mean, it's completely full. So there's need for that type of housing here, believe it or not, which, you know, it is what it is, or at least it has been. So, yeah, it's going to be a housing project for sure. Pretty sure. Yep. And I think the neighborhood is really excited about that too, because that fertilizer plant was, it wasn't very nice. Yeah, it needed some help. I mean, it burned a couple of years ago. Yeah, yep. So it'll be a little bit before it's done, but hopefully in a couple of years it'll be a nice piece of property. So, yeah. Uh-oh, Wayne's got a question. Wayne's going to ask me a hard one.
Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome.
What trends do you see in the growth of Plainfield, and what are some of the pluses and minuses?
Well, obviously, you know, we have our industrial park, which I'll tell you is a very nice industrial park when you talk about that kind of thing, right? And that affords a lot of things to happen for the community. You know, the trails, great schools, all those types of things. With that comes, you need to have more housing, and that's our biggest thing right now is housing, a lack of housing, lack of affordable housing. And I'm not talking Section 8 type housing, I'm just talking affordable housing. You know, a teacher that's starting out, you know, that has a salary of, you know, whatever, they can't afford to buy a house in Plainfield, but they want to teach in Plainfield, or they can't afford, you know, without a roommate, some of the apartments in Plainfield. So I think we need to fit that piece of the puzzle. So I think housing is a big issue, and I know there are some projects in the works right now to help take some of that pressure off. With that, you're going to have increased population. With that, you're going to have all the other things that are necessarily, I don't want to say bad, but challenges, traffic, you know, just more people, again, more pressure on the schools, more pressure on our parks, those kinds of things. So, you know, it's a give and take, but you try to be as thoughtful as you possibly can when you're planning those things, because they are coming. You know, it is what it is. You know, someone said to me a long time ago, if you're not planning for your future, you're managing your demise. And we've all been in rural Indiana and seen some of these rural areas that, you know, their downtowns are boarded up. There's no one down there. You know, property values are going down. You know, here in Plainfield, we're a little lucky. They're going a little bit. We're a pretty strong community, and we're very lucky to be where we're at. So, something to be very proud of. Any other questions I can answer for you?
I guess I have another one.
Yes, sir.
The warehouses are being built south of 70.
Yep.
On Quaker Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
Is there no possibility there, because it's the airport area, is there no possibility to build apartments or anything out that way at all?
You know, I think they're really trying to segregate the industrial park from the housing areas. There's some overflow when you get over by the mall with those apartments
Right.
that are over there. So I think they're really working hard, again, thoughtfully trying to figure out where they put things. I know there's been mistakes along the way. You know, you look at 70, for instance, and you look at the interchange at 70. You know, if you go east, that's where most of the industrial park's at, but we've got this one warehouse that's sitting on the west side. Guarantee you, if they had that to do over, that warehouse wouldn't be there. There would be more hotels or more restaurants or things like that. It's not the right place for it. So I think they're really trying to be thoughtful in where they put those things. Okay. To say that they're not going to do that, I can't say that, but it's a possibility. But I think it will be removed from that industrial area because nobody necessarily wants to look at a truck outside their bedroom window, right? You know, and then the town did purchase Sedalis Park
Right.
from the airport, and I think that's another plus, Wayne. That actually I forgot to mention until we just talked about that. They're really working hard to make that a better park than what it is, and it's already a very nice park. But adding some more trails, adding some more amenities, maybe some camping, things like that. So we'll see. They're doing a study on that right now, so we'll see what that turns into. Hopefully something nice. But we're just trying to attract some businesses downtown, specifically. Restaurants, things like that.
What's the status on the Performing Arts building?
So the Performing Arts, the way it sits now, the town hall or the government center, once it's built, which should be done, I think, sometime early spring, they'll move everybody from the town hall over there. Once that's done, then the old town hall will come down, and then that's where that will go. And they've already approved it, so it's a done deal. It's just a matter of getting it done. Now, the chamber offices, we're in the First National Bank building. Eventually, we will go back into a town hall situation. They've got a little place marked off for me that I'll have 24/7 access to, regardless if anybody's there. So when you walk in from the let's see, that'd be the north edge, the north entrance of the town hall, turn to the left, we'll be right there. So it will be very easy to get to. Any other questions? Nothing burning in the back of your mind? Yes, sir.
I apologize if you covered this before I got here, but I've heard mentioned something called a riverfront development. What is that, and where do they plan on it being? And
yeah, when I first heard this too, I'm like, what river? Where? How, what are you talking about? Yeah. So to put this in, so it's a tool or an instrument that the legislature made available to communities to allow them to do certain things. For instance, Greenwood has one, and their riverfront is actually, and it has to be so many feet from a body of water, and not a body of water, but some sort of a stream or something. They've got a drainage ditch that they call their riverfront. Plainfield's got a little bit more with the White Lake Creek, but it allows, and I think this is correct, so don't quote me on this, but I believe it allows more licenses for restaurants that would serve adult beverages, things like that. Where there's so many based on a community, based on the population of a community, this would allow them to do that. So when we talk about the Pruitt, you know, if it's going to be a Bridges type situation, they'll probably want to serve beer and wine. There were no liquor licenses available, but with them making a riverfront district, it would allow them to have that particular thing, that particular item. So, again, it was something new to me when they said, "Hey, we're going to have a riverfront district." I'm like, "What? Where's the river? What are you talking about?" So, yes, sir.
I guess at one point I thought I heard it was on the south side of 40, and then at another point I heard it was going to be on the north side. Or is it going to be?
I think it's on both sides. Again, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's on both sides because I know there's some, because most of the if anybody was ever in any of those downtown redevelopment meetings that they had, which they had a lot of public input meetings, and it's available on their website. If you go to the town's website, it talks about the downtown redevelopment study, and it talks about, you know, US 40. Let's face it, US 40 is a curse and a blessing. It's a blessing because there's a lot of cars that go down it, and we get a lot of exposure. But it's a curse when you try to get across it. You know, it's very difficult for people to walk across. So you pick one side or the other as far as development goes, and they kind of the study that they did kind of leaned towards the north end, the north side of 40, as far as not necessarily all redevelopment, but the bulk of maybe some of the things that are going to happen. And so you'll notice, you know, with Cruson specifically, they're looking at that as maybe being a reliever off of 40 to get people back into that area so that those businesses that do come, whether they're apartments or whether they're restaurants or whether they're, you know, some sort of retail situation, it'll make it easier for you to get there and get around. So they're looking more for that side, but they did not want to not include the south side as well. So I believe it's both sides. Pretty sure. It's above my pay grade.
The outside mall, what's going on there? I know there's a lot of stores closed. Any hopes of any more? Or?
You know, that place has struggled from when it was Metropolis. You know, I mean, they had some problems. It was bank-owned for so many years. Actually, more than one bank owned several pieces of property, and there were a lot of different parcels. And Pogue came in a few years ago and decided they were going to purchase it from the banks. They did that, and then last year, I believe it was, or the year before, they actually didn't like their terms, their finance terms, so they defaulted on the loan. But then they talked the bank into refinancing it, so now they have control of it again. So I know the management out there has worked really hard to fill some of those spaces, and some of those spaces have never been filled. I know from our standpoint, from the chamber standpoint, a few years ago, we worked hard to get a co-working space. And a co-working space is simply an open area that people can go and do work. You know, there's Wi-Fi, there's printing services, there's meeting rooms, there's boardrooms, things like that. And we're right above, it's called Level 2, and we're right above Stone Creek. And just dealing with them all at that time, it was very difficult for us to get that lease signed. There had never been anybody in the space that we were looking at, and as soon as we decided to look at it and rent it, they filled it. They've got, I mean, I don't think they have any space up in that area anymore. So, you know, they're slowly working towards trying to get people in there. But I think the face of retail is going to change. You're going to see places that aren't going to have as big a footprint. You still may have a shop that you can walk in, touch and feel your items before you purchase them. But let's face it, the days of, you know, Kmart's gone. You know, I'll use them as an example. JCPenney's hanging on by a thread. You know, Old Navy, I haven't been in an Old Navy in a while, but they seem to be doing okay. But there's a lot of retail that's really brick and mortar's having a difficult time. So I think that's gonna change a little bit. For better or worse, I'm not sure. And so that's going to change what they do. So I think you're probably going to see less retail and more experience type places out there. Maybe more restaurants, maybe more, I don't know, maybe laser tag, who knows, maybe escape rooms, stuff like that. I don't know.
I noticed that 3 of the businesses are Cunningham restaurants.
Yes.
And that's really great.
Cunningham's been very good to Plainfield, absolutely, with Brewburger and Stone Creek, and then the CRG Event Center. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's good to see.
It is good.
But, I was just wondering about all the shops, what's going on.
Yeah, you know, like I said, the last 24 months have just changed the world in so many ways, and I don't know I wish I had a crystal ball. Got a lot of money to invest, but I don't. So, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
How do you get shops into Metropolis and places around Plainfield? How do you choose, or how do you draw them in?
Well, that's a tough one. It's a really tough one because And I can tell you, a few years ago, Andrew and I went to a national conference. It was called Recon, and it's all about retail. And there's everybody there from Jimmy John's to Target to whatever, and they're all looking for places to go. And this was before COVID, and most of these people use analysts to figure out where they're going to go and what community they're going to go in. And these analysts look at traffic counts. They look at rooftops. They look at average incomes. They look at all those things, and that's where they figure out where to go. So it's a very difficult thing to do. That's one of the reasons why Avon 36 is so populated with retail, because if you look at it from a traffic standpoint, oh my gosh, how many cars go down 36 every day? Now, they're not seeing the fact that they're all stopped at a stoplight for 20 minutes before they get to the next stoplight, right? It's a 5-mile long parking lot, in my opinion, and that's the last place I would want to be. But when those analysts look at that, that's what they look at. They look at those traffic counts. So it is difficult. So Pogue, or the Shops at Perry Crossing, kind of do their own thing there. They're always looking, and they always go to these types of shows and always try to court different types of companies to maybe come in. And sometimes they're a major brand, sometimes maybe not a major brand. They've got one of the newest shops that's in the mall is a real estate office. Is that the best use? No, but they're paying rent, so they're helping, right? It'd be nice to see something else in there, but again, they do what they have to do to stay alive. And I think they've probably got a tougher road because, again, retail, the face of it is changing. So to answer your question, I'm not really sure because it has changed so much in the past 24 months, and there's very few companies that are expanding to the community and the consumer.
What about downtown? Are you more in control of that?
I'm more paying attention to downtown because of the Community Development Corporation. So we look at that. So good or bad, I'm going to admit it, the town asked us to oversee the parking garage. So there's 2 retail spaces there. And I will tell you, we have a letter of intent with one side, and we're about ready to sign the lease on the other side. So we have 2 people that are going to take every bit of that space. One is a restaurant. I can't tell you who it is, but I will tell you they have 2 other restaurants, and they're both on the north side. So it's a little more upscale than some of the things that maybe we've seen in the past.
Okay, just for a suggestion,
Yeah.
we really need a fabric store in town. Quilt shop.
Couldn't agree. Well, so
something, because there's a lot of people that sew.
my story is back when Kroger, everybody remembers the B stores on Kroger where they had Cindy's Hallmark. You had the golf store. That was me. They had Joanne Fabrics right next to me, so I remember all that stuff. So yeah, we haven't had a Joanne Fabrics or anything like that here around here in a long time. I would agree with you. Yeah, I would agree with you. So you never know. I mean, somebody could open just a small little spot, a small little store. So yeah, you're right. There's always that money thing. There's always that checkbook thing gets in the way, right? Yeah. So, any other questions? Well, I appreciate everybody being here. I appreciate everybody listening to my blathering about Plainfield, but I'm very proud to live here, proud of our community, proud of what we've done with the community, and I think we got a lot of really good things on the horizon. I really do. So thank you.
Thank you, Brad. We really appreciate it. That's a lot of information. Can we give Brad a hand, please? Thank you.
That's a great question. Next month. That is a great question. It was the Plainfield Friends Church. Give yourself a hand.